Welcome back. In this module of the Project Management Fundamentals, we will look at Execution Process Group, which is the third phase of project management process or life cycle. So the Execution Process Group definitely consists of processes or things that are performed to complete the work that has been defined or planned in the previous process group. And this is with the goal to satisfy the project requirements, which means meeting the quality as defined, making sure the customer will be happy and deliverables are done on time. So it utilizes the most project time and resources. So this is where really the whole thing gets interesting, because initiation phase, you initiated a project, got a project charter. Planning phase, you made all the plan as to where you would start and where you would end. And now you start executing. And this is where you start really using resources, materials, and then costs are usually coming in, and they can then be indicative that you're either spending more or spending less. But this is when it becomes really, really interesting in project management. And in this, in the execution project process group, you look at things like directing and managing the actual project work, perform quality assurance, making sure quality is checked, and if not, actions are taken. Put the project team in place, make sure they are doing their work, make sure the project team are also developing in their way of executing things. You manage the team properly, you manage communication, you conduct procurements with suppliers and agreements to make sure materials come in, and every other thing needs to happen at a time. And of course, you make sure you manage all your stakeholders, whoever they are, be it a normal engineer or supplier guy or anyone who is a stakeholder or important to that project success. And basically, you can follow those steps in order to do that. So basically, directing and managing has to do with integration management, and performing quality assurance has to do with quality management, and these things are tied. Each of the steps we just mentioned are tied to some knowledge areas, which we talked about earlier in one of the videos that we will dive into a little bit more in other modules to come. So in execution process group, it's important to keep track of this. And what are the things that are really also important? So what you want to get out are the deliverables and also the work performance data that shows you what is going on. And then that could lead to issues or things that requires you to change certain things or even change and update your project management plan, as well as ensure that you have documents that could be updated to capture the real situation of things. In that sense, the input you would need would be the actual project management plan you had at the beginning, or the approved change request, assuming there are changes identified, because this is also like a loop where when you execute something and that activity does not go according to plan, someone makes a change request or there is need for a change request. You need to get it approved so that officially you can update the plan, and also you take advantages of all your enterprise environment factors in the organization where you can get help, lessons learned, or processes that helps you to get things done better, or any asset at all that you have. This is basically depending on what you can find in your organization. And then, of course, you use tools and techniques like expert judgment, your project management information systems. There's a lot of them out there, and different companies use different types of project management information system. And then there are a lot of meetings to align on things that you want. And then you can, also organize it in such a way that you follow a number of execution steps, making sure that you delegate tasks to get work done effectively. You ensure that you can also trust and empower your team to do the right thing, but also check that also you can all exchange ideas and make sure things are going well. Be open to new ideas, manage the communication properly, make sure progress is reported regularly, and make sure the scope is still what it is. If there needs to be an extension or something removed from the scope or what is agreed, it has to be via change request and it has to be approved. And ensure the quality is acceptable to the customer. And that would mean, as a project manager, you need to come up with some kind of strategy in executing your project. And depending on what kind of strategy you want to put, for example, if you would consider uh, if the quality of your strategy execution is poor and the strategy itself. So this is one thing is to develop a strategy. Another thing is the execution itself. So if the strategy is a poor one and the execution is poor, then you are more in a troubled spot. You will be getting potentially harmful results, and you will lose opportunities to be able to execute your project properly. But if your strategy is if your strategy is good, but the execution is still poor, then you might fail to launch, which means, of course, it's a great strategy, but the execution is poor. So which means you will be getting disappointing results. So you need to improve on the execution quality. And if you have a poor strategy, but the execution is good, how you execute it is good, then you have what we call promising results, um, which may mean that you have to improve on the strategy itself because you're good at executing or know how well to execute things. But then what would be the ideal situation will be in the zone where both your strategy as well as the execution are of high quality and you can get great results that are beneficial and you can also deliver a project on time. So keep this in mind because these are things that you need to consider. You take your time as a project manager to think about, and you, depending on your situation, you apply those uh, while managing people, while looking at how to um, ensure that scope doesn't creep and people don't do gold plating by adding features which are nice, but they're not necessarily agreed with the customer. And these are things you keep in mind. And there is no black and white line in all this. You just have to figure it out every day, but have a strategy and have a plan. Thank you, and we will continue on the next process group in our next video.